Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, looking out at the bright colors of the Helix Nebula. The gas clouds moved slowly through space like paint mixing in water. Red mixed with blue, green swirled with gold. It was beautiful. But Sarah had work to do. The Wanderer's dream was not a big ship. It was built for exploring, not fighting. Sarah's crew was small too. Only 12 people worked on the ship. They were scientists, engineers, and a few guards. They came to this part of space to study old ruins left behind by dead civilizations. "Captain, we found something," said Dr. Martinez from his station. He was the team's expert on old alien technology. His eyes were bright with excitement. "There's a structure on the planet below. It's huge and very old." Sarah looked at the screen. The planet was gray and empty. No life grew there anymore. But on the surface, she could see the outline of something. Big, it looked like a city, but the buildings were strange shapes that humans never built. "How old?" Sarah asked. "Maybe 10,000 years?" "Maybe more," Martinez said. "The energy readings are very weak, but they're still there. Something is still working down there." Sarah felt excited too. Finding working technology from dead aliens was rare. It could teach them many things about the galaxy's history. "Take us down," she ordered. The ship's pilot, Lieutenant Park, was good at his job. He flew the Wanderer's dream through the planet's thin atmosphere. The ship landed near the ruins without any problems. Sarah put on her spacesuit and led a small team to explore. The ruins were even more amazing up close. The buildings were made of a metal that still looked new after thousands of years. Strange. Symbols covered the walls. They glowed with a soft blue light. "This is incredible," whispered Dr. Kim, the team's language expert. She was taking pictures of the symbols. "I've never seen writing like this before." They walked deeper into the ruins. In the center they found a tall tower. It was perfectly round and reached high into the sky. At the bottom was a door, but it was sealed shut. "Can we get inside?" Sarah asked. Martinez ran his scanner over the door. "There's a control panel here. It's still active." He looked at Sarah. "Should I try to open it?" Sarah thought for a moment. They were in unknown space, far from any human colony. But they came here to explore and learn. "Do it, but be careful." Martinez touched his tools to the control panel. Lights started flashing. The door began to open with a deep humming sound. Cool air flowed out from inside the tower. "The atmosphere is safe," Martinez said, checking his scanner. They walked inside. The tower was hollow, with stairs going up. Along the walls, in the center, was a strange machine. It looked like a crystal tree made of metal and light. It was beautiful and scary at the same time. "What do you think it is?" Sarah asked. "Some kind of beacon, maybe," Martinez said. "Or a communication device." Kim was studying the symbols on the walls. "These markings talk about sending messages to the stars. I think this was used to contact other worlds." Sarah walked closer to the machine. As she got near, it started to glow brighter. The crystals began to spin slowly. A low sound filled the air, like music, but not quite. "Captain, I'm getting energy readings," Martinez said. His voice sounded worried. "The machine is powering up. Should we leave?" Park asked. He was nervous about alien technology. Sarah watched the machine. It was beautiful, but she could feel power building inside it. "Everyone back to the ship, now!" They ran from the tower. Behind them, the machine's light got brighter and brighter. Just as they reached their ship, a beam of light shot up from the tower into space. It was so bright it hurt to look at. "What did we do?" Kim asked. "I don't know," Sarah said, "but we need to leave, fast." Park started the engines. The Wanderer's dream lifted off and flew away from the planet. Sarah looked back and saw the light. Beam still shooting into space. It pulsed like a heartbeat. "Captain," called Johnson from the communication station. "I'm picking up a signal." "It's very strong and getting stronger." "What kind of signal?" "It's not human." "The pattern is complex. It's like someone is answering the beacon." Sarah felt cold fear in her stomach. "How far away?" Johnson worked at his controls. His face went pale. "Close, very close." There are ships coming out of hyperspace. On the main screen, Sarah saw a space tier open like cloth. Ships came through the tier. Not one or two, but many. They were big ships, built for war. Their hulls were black metal covered in spikes and weapons. 20 ships, Park said. No, 30. They keep coming. Sarah had never seen ships like these before. They looked like metal sharks, hungry and dangerous. Red lights glowed on their sides like angry eyes. Can we run? Sarah asked. Already trying, Park said. His hands moved fast over the controls. But they're faster than us. A voice came over the communication system. It was deep and harsh, speaking in a language Sarah didn't know, but the ship's computer translated into English. Unknown vessel. You have activated a sacred beacon of the Zephyrian Dominion. This is an act of war. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Sarah's blood felt like ice. She had heard of the Zephyrian Dominion. They were one of the most dangerous alien races in the galaxy. They loved war and conquered other species for fun. They were cruel and showed no mercy. This is Commander Sarah. Shun of the human exploration vessel Wanderer's Dream, she said into the communicator. We meant no harm. We were just exploring old ruins. We didn't know the beacon was yours, the alien voice spoke again. Ignorance is not an excuse. You have violated Dominion space and activated military equipment. Surrender your ship and crew. For questioning, refuse and you will be hunted down and killed. Sarah looked at her crew. They were scared, but they trusted her to make the right choice. She knew what happened to prisoners of the Zephyrian Dominion. They were tortured for information, then killed slowly for entertainment. We cannot surrender, Sarah said. But we offer to pay for any damage and leave your space immediately. The alien laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. You think you can negotiate? You are insects. Your ship is a toy. Surrender now or face the full power of Battlefleet Terminus. More ships kept coming through the hyperspace tier. Sarah counted 50, then 70, then 100. They were all warships, each one 10 times bigger than her small exploration vessel. Captain, what are your orders? Park asked. Sarah looked at the screen full of enemy ships. Her small crew waited for her decision. She thought about her family. Back on Earth, she thought about all the humans living on colonies across space. If she surrendered, the Zephyrians would learn about human settlements. They might attack innocent people. We run, Sarah said. All power to engines. Park pushed the engines to maximum. The Wanderer's Dream shot forward, racing away from the alien fleet. Behind them, red laser beams cut through space where they had been just seconds before. They're following us, Johnson said. All of them, Sarah watched the rear screen. The entire Zephyrian fleet was chasing her small ship. It looked like a pack of wolves chasing a rabbit. But Sarah was not going to give up easily. How many ships? She asked. Johnson counted the signals on his screen. 200. Maybe more. 200 warships against one exploration vessel. Sarah's crew looked at her with fear and hope mixed together. They knew the odds were impossible, but they also knew their captain would not quit. Captain, Martinez said quietly. Why are they sending so many ships for just us? Sarah understood. The Zephyrians were not just hunting them. They were making a show of power. They wanted the galaxy to see what happened to anyone who crossed the Dominion, even by accident. They want to make an example of us, Sarah said. Show everyone that the Dominion is strong. Kim looked scared. What do we do? Sarah set her jaw and looked at the fleet chasing them. We survive. We make them work for it. And maybe if we're lucky, we get word back to Earth about what happened here. The chase began. One small human ship against an entire alien armada. Sarah knew they couldn't win, but she also knew they had to try. Her crew was depending on her. Humanity was depending on her. All hands prepare for evasive maneuvers, Sarah announced over the ship's speakers. This is going to be a long day. The Wanderer's Dream raced through space with 200 enemy ships behind it. The hunt had begun, and Sarah Chun was not going to make it easy for them. The Wanderer's Dream flew through space faster than it was ever meant to go. Behind it, 200 Zephyrian warships followed like a dark cloud of death. Sarah stood on the bridge, watching the enemy fleet on her screens. They were getting closer. "How much time do we have?" Sarah asked. Lieutenant Park was sweating as he worked the controls. "At this speed, maybe 6 hours before they catch us? But the engines can't take this much longer." Sarah nodded. 6 hours was not much time, but it was something. "Take us to the Kronos system. There are asteroids there we can hide in." "Yes, Captain," Park said. He changed course toward the nearby star system. On the enemy flagship, Admiral Kethver watched the human ship on his own screens. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and yellow eyes. His uniform was covered in medals from past battles. He had conquered 12 worlds for the Dominion. "Crushing one small human ship would be easy, Admiral," said his communications officer. "Should we contact the homeworld about the hunt?" Kethver smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Yes, broadcast everything. I want the whole galaxy to watch as we destroy these insects. Let every species see what happens when they cross the Dominion." The officer began sending the signal. Across Zephyrian space, people watched the chase on their screens. The news spread to other worlds, too. Many species had been attacked by the Zephyrians before. They watched to see if the humans would fight or just give up. Sarah felt the ship shake as Park pushed the engines harder. "How are we doing back there?" She called to Martinez in the engine room. "Not good," Martinez answered over the comm. "The engines are running too hot. If we keep this up, they'll explode." "Can you fix it?" "I can try, but I need time." Sarah looked at the enemy fleet on her screen. They were still far away, but getting closer every minute. "You have 1 hour. Make it count." In the engine room, Martinez and his team worked as fast as they could. They took apart parts of the engine and put them back together in new ways. They used tools that were never meant for this kind of work. Sweat dripped from their faces as they raced against time. Dr. Kim was at her station, trying to learn more about their enemies. "Captain, I've been studying their language. I think I understand how they think." "Tell me," Sarah said. "They see this as a game. To them, we're not people. We're just prey to be hunted. They think it's fun." Sarah felt anger burn in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "Then we'll show them that prey can bite back." The Wanderer's Dream reached the Kronos system and flew into the asteroid field. Huge rocks floated in space, some as big as cities. Park flew the ship between them, using the asteroids to hide from the enemy sensors. "Good thinking," Sarah said. "Can they find us here?" Johnson was watching his instruments. "Their scanners are having trouble. The metal in these rocks blocks their signals." For a moment, Sarah felt hope. Maybe they could hide until the enemy gave up and went away. But then she saw lights moving between the asteroids. The Zephyrian ships were coming into the field, too. "They're not giving up," Park said. Admiral Kethver stood on his bridge, watching his ship spread out through the asteroid field. "Search every rock," he ordered. "The humans cannot hide from us forever." His ships moved slowly through the field, checking behind every asteroid. They used powerful scanners and bright lights to look for the human ship. It was like a deadly game of hide and seek. The Wanderer's Dream sat quiet behind a large asteroid. Sarah had ordered all systems shut down except life support. The ship was almost invisible, but she knew it wouldn't last long. "Captain," whispered Johnson. 3 enemy ships are coming this way." Sarah watched the screen. The alien ships were searching carefully, moving from rock to rock. They were only a few minutes away from finding the Wanderer's Dream. "Martinez, how are those engines?" Sarah asked quietly. "Almost done," came the reply. "Give me 2 more minutes." Sarah looked at the enemy ships. They would be here in 1 minute. "We don't have 2 minutes." She made a quick decision. "Park, start the engines." "Johnson, send a signal on all frequencies." "Make it loud." "What kind of signal?" Johnson asked. "Music. Send them human music." Johnson looked confused but did what she ordered. The sound of classical music began broadcasting from their ship. It was beautiful and peaceful, very different from the harsh voices of the Zephyrians. The 3 enemy ships heard the signal and turned toward them. Their weapons began charging with red light. "Now!" Sarah shouted. Park started the engines, and the Wanderer's Dream shot out from behind the asteroid. The enemy ships fired, but they missed. Red laser beams hit the rock where the human ship had been hiding. The Wanderer's Dream flew through the asteroid field as fast as it could. Behind it, the 3 Zephyrian ships gave chase. More enemy ships heard the noise and came to join the hunt. "Why did you do that?" Park asked as he flew between the floating rocks. "Now they know where we are." "Look at your scanner," Sarah said. Park looked and his eyes went wide. While the enemy ships were chasing them, they had crashed into several asteroids. The rocks were harder than the alien ships expected. 2 of the enemy vessels were badly damaged. "They don't know this field like we do," Sarah explained. "They're too big and too confident. We can use that against them." The Wanderer's Dream led more enemy ships into the dangerous part of the field. Park flew between rocks that were very close together. The bigger alien ships had trouble following. Some of them hit the asteroids and got damaged. Others had to slow down to avoid crashing, but there were too many of them. Even if some ships got damaged, there were always more coming. The Wanderer's Dream could not hide in the asteroid field forever. "Captain, we need to leave," Park said. "They're surrounding us." Sarah saw he was right. Enemy ships were coming from all directions. Soon they would be trapped. "Take us out of the field. Head for the Gamma Nebula." The Wanderer's Dream flew out of the asteroids and back into open space. The damaged Zephyrian ships stayed behind, but the rest of the fleet followed. The chase continued. Admiral Kethver was angry. The humans had damaged 6 of his ships and made him look foolish. He spoke to his fleet over the radio. "No more games," he said in his harsh voice. "Destroy those asteroids, all of them." The Zephyrian ships fired their biggest weapons at the asteroid field. Huge rocks exploded into dust and smaller pieces. In a few minutes, the entire field was gone. The Admiral wanted to make sure no one else could use it to hide from him. Sarah watched the destruction on her rear screen. The beautiful asteroid field was now just empty space filled with dust. The Zephyrians had destroyed it just to show their power. "They're monsters," Kim said quietly. "Yes," Sarah agreed. "But monsters can be beaten. We just have to be smarter than them." The Wanderer's Dream reached the Gamma Nebula, a huge cloud of gas and dust between the stars. Park flew the ship into the colorful mist. Inside the nebula, it was hard to see and sensors didn't work well. "This should slow them down," Sarah said, but the Zephyrians had fought in nebulas before. They knew how to hunt in the thick gas clouds. They spread their ships out in a wide line and moved forward slowly, searching for any sign of the human vessel. Martinez finally got the engines fixed, but the ship was running out of fuel. They had been flying at maximum speed for hours. Soon they would have to stop whether they wanted to or not. "How much fuel do we have left?" Sarah asked. "Enough for maybe 2 more hours at this speed," Martinez reported. "After that, we're dead in space." Sarah felt the weight of command on her shoulders. Her crew was looking at her for answers, but she was running out of ideas. They had fought bravely, but 12 people in one small ship could not beat 200 warships forever. The enemy ships were getting closer in the nebula. Their sensors had found the Wanderer's Dream's trail. It was only a matter of time before they were caught. "Captain," Johnson said, "I'm picking up something strange." "What kind of strange?" "There's a signal coming from deep in the nebula. It's very weak, but it's definitely artificial." Sarah looked at the scanner. There was something out there in the gas cloud, something that wasn't natural. Could be another beacon, or maybe a ship. "Should we investigate?" Sarah thought about it. They were being hunted by an entire fleet. Going deeper into the nebula might trap them, but it might also lead to something that could help them. "Do it," she decided. "We don't have many options left." The Wanderer's Dream flew deeper into the colorful mist of the nebula. The gas was so thick now that they could barely see anything outside, but the strange signal was getting stronger. Behind them, the Zephyrian ships followed. Admiral Kethver was getting impatient. The hunt had gone on too long. His superiors were asking questions about why it was taking so long to catch one small ship. "Find them," he ordered his captains. "I don't care what it takes. Find them and destroy them." The alien ships spread out through the nebula, searching every cloud of gas. They were like sharks smelling blood in the water. They knew their prey was nearby. Deep in the nebula, the Wanderer's Dream found the source of the signal. It was a space station, very old and obviously abandoned. But some of its systems were still working, sending out the weak signal they had detected. "What is this place?" Kim asked. Sarah studied the station on her screen. It was built by aliens, but not Zephyrians. The design was different, more elegant. Some kind of research station, maybe, or a listening post? "Captain, I'm detecting weapons on that station," Johnson reported. "Old ones, but they might still work." Sarah felt a spark of hope. "Can we control them?" Martinez was already working on the problem. "Maybe. The station's computer systems are very old, but I think I can interface with them. Do it fast." "We don't have much time." The Zephyrian ships were getting closer. Their lights could be seen through the gas clouds. In a few minutes, they would find the Wanderer's Dream. Martinez worked frantically at his controls. Ancient alien computers were hard to understand, but he was one of the best engineers in the human fleet. Slowly, he began to make contact with the station's systems. "I'm in," he said. "The station has 6 plasma cannons. They're old but functional. Can you fire them?" "Working on it." The first Zephyrian ship came around a gas cloud and saw the Wanderer's Dream floating near the old station. The alien captain smiled and prepared to fire his weapons. Finally, the hunt was over. But before he could shoot, 6 beams of blue plasma erupted from the ancient station. They hit the Zephyrian ship and cut through its armor like paper. The enemy vessel exploded in a ball of fire. "Yes," Park shouted. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. 1 down, 199 to go. More enemy ships came toward the station, but the old weapons kept firing. The plasma cannons were powerful, much stronger than anything on the Wanderer's Dream. 3 more Zephyrian ships were destroyed before the others retreated to a safe distance. Admiral Kethver stared at his screen in rage. 4 of his ships had been destroyed by ancient weapons. The humans had turned the tables on him again. "Bring up the heavy cruisers," he ordered. "Destroy that station." The biggest ships in the Zephyrian fleet moved forward. Their weapons were much more powerful than the old plasma cannons. They fired massive energy beams that tore the ancient station apart. Sarah watched the station explode on her screen. Their temporary advantage was gone. Now they were back where they started, 1 small ship against an entire fleet. But the fight had given her something valuable: time. And it had shown her crew that they could hurt their enemies. They were not helpless prey. They were humans. And humans never gave up without a fight. "Where to now, Captain?" Park asked. Sarah looked at the navigation charts. They were running out of places to hide. But she had one more idea, one last desperate plan. "Set course for the Void Sector," she said. Her crew looked at her in surprise. The Void Sector was an empty region of space where nothing lived and no one went. It was dangerous and lifeless. "Captain, there's nothing there," Johnson said. "Exactly," Sarah replied, "and that's where we'll make our stand." The Wanderer's Dream flew out of the nebula and headed for the empty darkness of the Void Sector. Behind them, the Zephyrian fleet followed like a dark storm. The final confrontation was coming, and Sarah knew that only one side would survive it. The Void Sector was exactly what its name suggested: empty space where nothing lived and nothing grew. No stars shone here, only the distant light from other galaxies far away. It was cold, dark, and lonely. Perfect for a final battle, the Wanderer's Dream limped into the sector with its engines barely working. The ship had been running at maximum power for too long. Parts were breaking down and the crew was exhausted. But they were still alive, still fighting. Sarah stood on the bridge, looking out at the darkness. Behind them, she could see the lights of the Zephyrian fleet. 200 ships, all coming to destroy her small crew. The odds were impossible, but she was not afraid anymore. Fear was a luxury she could not afford. How are we doing, Martinez? She asked over the comm. Not good, Captain, came the reply from the engine room. The main drive is almost dead. We have maybe 1 hour of power left, and that's if we're lucky. Weapons? We have 2 small plasma cannons and some mining charges we use for asteroid work. Against 200 warships, it's not much, Sarah nodded. She had expected this. The Wanderer's dream was never meant to fight wars. It was built to explore new worlds and study ancient ruins, but sometimes explorers had to become warriors. Dr. Kim, Sarah called, any luck with those distress signals? Kim looked up from her station. She had been sending emergency messages into space for hours, hoping someone would hear them. I've tried every frequency I know. If there are any. Human ships nearby, they should have heard us by now. And if there aren't, Kim's face was sad, then we're on our own. Sarah walked to the center of the bridge and looked at her crew. These were good people, scientists, engineers, and explorers who had never expected to die in battle. But they were here with her, ready to fight impossible odds. Listen to me, all of you, Sarah said. We knew when we signed up for exploration. Duty that space was dangerous. We just never thought it would be this dangerous. Park managed a weak smile. That's the understatement of the century, Captain. The Zephyrians think they've already won, Sarah continued. They think we're just scared humans who will give up when things get hard. They don't know us very well. Johnson looked at his scanner. Captain, they're spreading out. Looks like they want to surround us. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was forming a huge circle around their position. There would be no escape this time. This was where they would make their stand. All hands, prepare for battle, Sarah announced over the ship's speakers. We're going to show these aliens what humans are made of. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kethfer was feeling confident again. The humans had led him on a long chase, but now they were trapped in empty space with nowhere to run. Soon this embarrassing hunt would be over. Admiral, his communications officer said. The homeworld wants to speak with you. Kethfer walked to his private office and activated the long-range communicator. The face of Supreme Commander Vexstar appeared on the screen. Vexstar was old and covered in scars from many battles. He did not look happy. Admiral, Vexstar said in his deep voice, you have been chasing one small ship for almost a day. When will this end? Soon, Supreme Commander, Kethfer replied. The humans are trapped. We will destroy them within the hour. See that you do. This hunt has gone on too long. Other species are watching and some are asking questions. End this quickly and completely. Yes, Supreme Commander. The communication ended and Kethfer returned to his bridge. He was angry and embarrassed. A simple mission had turned into a long chase that made him look weak. The humans would pay for that. All ships, prepare to attack, he ordered. No survivors. I want that ship turned to dust. Back on the Wanderer's Dream, the crew was getting ready for the battle. Martinez had armed the mining charges and turned them into makeshift bombs. Park was testing the ship's weapons, making sure they would work when needed. Kim was still sending distress signals, hoping for a miracle. Captain, Johnson said, they're moving into attack position. All 200 ships. Sarah looked at the screen. The Zephyrian fleet looked like a wall of metal and death surrounding them. Each enemy ship was bigger and more powerful than her. Small vessel. But she had something they did not have, a crew that would never give up. Attention Zephyrian fleet, Sarah said into the communicator. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the human exploration vessel Wanderer's Dream. Admiral Kethfer's voice came back immediately. You will surrender now, human. Your ship is surrounded. You cannot escape. You're right, Sarah said calmly. We can't escape, but we won't surrender either. There was silence for a moment. Then Kethfer laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Do you think you can fight us? Your ship is nothing compared to our fleet. Maybe, Sarah said. But you're about to learn something about humans. We don't surrender. We don't give up. We fight until the end. Then you will die. Probably. But we'll make you work for it. And when other humans hear about what happened here, they'll know that we went down fighting. They'll know that the Zephyrian Dominion needs 200 ships to kill 12 people. Sarah could hear the anger in Kethver's voice when he replied, "Your species will learn to fear us. When we find your homeworld, You'll find out that there are millions more like us," Sarah interrupted. "Humans who won't bow down to bullies like you. Good luck with that." She cut the communication before Kethver could reply. Around her, the crew was smiling despite the hopeless situation. Their captain had just told an entire alien fleet that humanity would never surrender. It felt good to be defiant, even in the face of certain death. "All ships attack!" Kethver screamed over the radio. 200 warships opened fire at once. The space around the Wanderer's Dream filled with laser beams and plasma bolts. The small human ship disappeared in a cloud of energy and fire, but when the smoke cleared, the Wanderer's Dream was still there. Park had used every trick he knew to dodge the incoming fire. The ship was damaged, but it was still flying. "Return fire." Sarah ordered. The Wanderer's Dream's small weapons fired back at the huge fleet. The plasma bolts looked like sparks hitting a mountain, but they hit their targets. One Zephyrian ship took damage to its engines and began to drift. "One down," Martinez said with satisfaction. 199 to go, Park added. The battle continued. The human ship was like a small bird fighting a flock of eagles. It twisted and turned, firing whenever it could, always moving to avoid the enemy weapons. But there were too many of them. Slowly, the Wanderer's Dream was taking more and more damage. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Martinez reported. "Ceiling." "It now, weapons array is damaged," Johnson added. "We're down to one plasma cannon." Sarah felt the ship shake as another enemy blast hit them. The lights flickered and she could smell smoke in the air. They were losing, but they were not dead. "Yet, use the mining charges," she ordered. "All of them." Martinez launched the converted mining explosives at the closest enemy ships. The charges were not very accurate, but in the middle of such a large fleet, they didn't need to be. 3 of them hit their targets and exploded, damaging several. Zephyrian vessels. Admiral Kethver watched from his flagship as the humans continued to fight. He had expected them to die quickly, but they kept finding ways to hurt his ships. It was impressive and annoying at the same time. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "we've lost 8 ships to damage. The humans are better fighters than expected." "They are still just one ship," Kethver replied. "Keep firing." But privately, he was starting to worry. The hunt had gone on too long, and now the humans were making him look bad in front of his own fleet. His superiors would not be happy if he lost. Many more ships to a single human vessel. On the Wanderer's Dream, the situation was getting desperate. The ship's systems were failing one by one. The engines were barely working, the weapons were almost gone, and there were fires in 3 different sections. "Captain," Kim said suddenly, "I'm getting something on the long-range scanners." "More Zephyrians?" Sarah asked. "No, something else. It's big, and it's coming this way fast." Sarah looked at the scanner display. There was indeed something approaching, but it was still too far away to identify. "How long until it gets here?" 20 minutes, maybe less." Sarah looked around at her damaged bridge. 20 minutes was a long time in a battle like this. She wasn't sure they could last that long. "We need to buy time," she said. "Park, take us closer to their fleet, right into the middle of them." Park stared at her. "Captain, that's suicide." "Maybe, but they won't expect it. And if we're in the middle of their formation, they'll have to be careful about shooting. They might hit their own ships." It was a desperate plan, but Park followed orders. The Wanderer's Dream flew straight at the Zephyrian fleet, dodging laser, fire, and plasma bolts. The enemy ships were so surprised by the bold move that some of them stopped shooting. The human ship flew right between 2 large cruisers, so close that their hulls almost touched. The Zephyrian captains wanted to fire, but they were afraid of hitting each other. "Brilliant," Martinez said. "They can't shoot us without risking their own ships." But the tactic couldn't last long. The enemy ships began to spread out, giving themselves room to fire safely. Soon, the Wanderer's Dream would be trapped in the middle of the fleet with nowhere to go. 10 minutes, Kim reported. Whatever's coming will be here in 10 minutes. Sarah made a decision. All power to the communications array. Maximum broadcast. On all frequencies, Captain, Johnson asked. If we're going to die, I want the galaxy to know what happened here. I want them to know that humans don't surrender to bullies. Johnson powered up the communications system and opened a channel on every frequency he could find. Sarah's voice began broadcasting across space, loud enough for anyone with a radio to hear. This is Commander Sarah Chun of the Human Exploration. Vessel Wanderer's Dream, we are under attack by the Zephyrian Dominion Fleet. 200 ships against 12 people. We did nothing wrong except accidentally activate an old beacon while exploring ruins. Around the galaxy, different species. Heard the transmission. Some were allies of the Zephyrians and ignored it. Others had been attacked by the Dominion before and listened with interest. The Zephyrians demand that we surrender for questioning, Sarah continued. We know what that means. We know what they do to prisoners, so we choose to fight. We choose to show them that humans will not be victims. The battle continued around them as Sarah spoke. Enemy fire lit up the darkness of space, and the Wanderer's Dream shook with each hit. We may die here today, Sarah said. But we want the galaxy to know that we died as free people. We died fighting for the right to explore the stars and learn about the universe. If there are other humans listening, remember us. Remember that we did not surrender. 5 minutes, Kim whispered. Sarah could see that her ship was dying. Systems were failing and the hull was breaking apart. But her crew was still at their stations, still fighting. She was proud of them. Humanity is new to the galaxy, Sarah broadcast. We are explorers and scientists, not conquerors. We seek knowledge, not war, but when war comes to us, we will fight. We will always fight. Suddenly, space around them began to change. Reality seemed to bend and twist, and new ships began to appear. But these were not Zephyrian vessels. They were different, sleek and graceful, made of what looked like living crystal. Captain, Kim said in amazement, those are Altarian ships, the crystal builders. More ships appeared, and these were different again. They looked like they were grown instead of built, organic and flowing. Then came vessels that seemed to be made of pure energy, glowing with inner light. Multiple fleets, Johnson reported, his voice full of wonder. I count at least 60 different ship designs. And they're all heading straight for the Zephyrians. Admiral Kethver stared at his screens in shock. Ships were appearing all around his fleet, dozens of different species, all armed for war. He recognized some of them, the Altarian Republic, the Deep Stream Collective, the Ethereal Conductors. These were powerful civilizations, and they were all here, sir, his communications officer said in a shaking voice. We're receiving a transmission. It's on all frequencies from all the alien fleets. The message came through in dozens of different languages, but the ship's computer translated them all into the same words. Attention Zephyrian Fleet. You are attacking beings under our protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Kethver could not believe what he was hearing. Under their protection? The humans, but they just met them. His second-in-command looked at the massive alien fleet surrounding them. Admiral, we are outnumbered 10-1. Maybe we should consider never. Kethver screamed. We do not retreat from insects. But as he looked at the alien ships gathering around him, he began to understand that something had changed in the galaxy. The humans had done something no one expected. They had inspired others to action. On the Wanderer's Dream, Sarah and her crew watched in amazement as more and more ships arrived. Species they had never heard of were coming to help them. The small human vessel was no longer alone in the darkness. Why? Kim asked. Why are they helping us? Sarah thought she understood. Because we showed them something they recognized. We showed them that some things are worth fighting for, even against impossible odds. The galaxy had heard her message. They had seen 12 humans refuse to surrender to 200 warships. And something about that courage, that refusal to give up, had touched them. The battle was no longer one small ship against a fleet. It was about to become something much bigger. The galaxy itself was choosing sides, and it had chosen to stand. With the humans who would not surrender, Sarah looked at her damaged ship and her brave crew. They had survived the impossible. But the real test was just beginning. Space around the dying wanderer's dream suddenly became alive with activity. Ships appeared from hyperspace, from dimensional rifts, and from places that seemed impossible. They came in all shapes and sizes, built by species that had never worked. Together, before Sarah stood on her damaged bridge, watching the screens in amazement. Her small crew was equally stunned. In just a few minutes, they had gone from facing certain death to being surrounded by hundreds of alien ships, all there to help them. "Captain," Johnson said, his voice full of wonder, "I'm counting over 500 ships from at least 60 different species. Some of these races have been enemies for centuries, but they're all here together. The first to arrive were the Altarians. Their ships looked like they were carved from living crystal, beautiful and deadly at the same time. The crystal hulls reflected light in rainbow patterns, and their weapons charged with pure white energy. Admiral Veltara of the Altarian Republic sent a message to the Wanderer's dream. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Veltara. We heard your message. We came as fast as we could," Sarah found her voice. "Thank you, Admiral. But why? We've never even met your people before." "Because you showed us something we had forgotten," Veltara replied. "You showed us what true courage looks like. When we heard that 12 people refused to surrender to 200 ships, we knew we had to act." More ships continued to arrive. The Deepstream Collective came next. Their vessels looked like giant sea creatures made of metal and energy. They moved through space like whales swimming through an ocean. Graceful and powerful, Commander Depsinger of the Collective sent his own message. His voice sounded like waves crashing on a shore. "Small human ship, you fight like the great swimmers of the deep currents. We honor your courage." Then came the ethereal conductors, beings of pure energy who built ships from folded space and time. Their vessels hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than human eyes could see. The voice of their leader came through, in mathematical patterns that the ship's computer could barely translate. "Humans have shown probability of noble behavior despite overwhelming negative outcomes. This creates positive resonance across dimensional barriers. We approve." Sarah was having trouble believing what she was seeing. "Dr. Kim, are you recording this?" "Every second, Captain," Kim replied, "though I'm not sure anyone back home will believe it." Admiral Kethver watched the growing alien fleet with growing horror. His 200 ships were now outnumbered by more than 2 to 1, and more ships kept arriving. Species that had never cooperated before were working together against him. "Sir," his communications officer said nervously, "we're receiving messages from High Command. They want to know why half the galaxy is mobilizing against us." Kethver didn't have a good answer. He had started this as a simple hunt to destroy one small human ship. Now it had become something much bigger and more dangerous. "Admiral," his second-in-command whispered, "perhaps we should consider withdrawal. This situation has become ... complicated." "Complicated?" Kethver roared. "We are the Zephyrian Dominion. We do not retreat from anyone, especially not to protect a handful of weak humans." But even as he said it, he could see more ships arriving. The hive minds came in swarms of smaller vessels that moved like flocks of metallic birds. The Silicon architects arrived in geometric ships that looked like flying mathematical equations. Even the mysterious Voidwalkers emerged from dark space, their black ships barely visible against the stars on the Wanderer's dream. Sarah was receiving message after message from different species. Each one offered help, and each one gave the same reason: they had been inspired by humanity's refusal to surrender. A gruff voice came through the communicator. "Human ship, this is Captain Forgethand of the Iron Brotherhood. We are warriors who respect strength. You have shown strength against impossible odds. We stand with you." Another message followed immediately. Wanderer's Dream, this is Harmony Song of the Music Makers. Your courage creates beautiful notes in the symphony of space. We join our voices to yours. Even species that Sarah had never heard of were arriving. The dream weavers came in ships that seemed to be made of solidified thoughts. The star dancers flew vessels that moved like living light. The ancient ones, old beyond imagining, brought ships that had been built when the galaxy was young. Why? Are they all coming? Park asked. We're just one small ship. Sarah thought she understood. Because we represent something important. We're the little guy standing up to the bully. Every species in the galaxy has faced bullies like the Zephyrians. At some point, they see themselves in us. Dr. Martinez came up from the engine room, his face dirty but smiling. Captain, you need to see this. The Altarians are sending us technical data, repair instructions for our engines. The Silicon architects are transmitting structural plans to fix our hull. Everyone is trying to help. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. These alien species barely knew humanity existed, but they were willing to fight and die to protect 12 human explorers. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing she had ever experienced. The communication system crackled to life again. This time it was a group message from all the alien fleets. Zephyrian Fleet, this is the Combined Free Species Alliance, came a chorus of voices in dozens of languages. You have attacked beings under our protection. You have one chance to withdraw. Peacefully. If you refuse, we will consider this an act of war against all of us. Admiral Kethver stared at his screens. The Combined Free Species Alliance didn't exist an hour ago. These species had just invented it on the spot, united by their desire to protect the humans. Admiral, his weapons officer said quietly, some of our ships are asking for permission to withdraw. The crews are frightened. Kethver could understand why. His fleet was now surrounded by over 800 alien ships. Many of these species had technology that was equal to or better than the Zephyrians. If fighting started, it would be a massacre, but Kethver was too proud and too angry to back down. The humans had embarrassed him, and now they had turned half the galaxy against him. He could not let that stand. All ships, prepare for battle, he ordered. We will show these aliens what happens when they interfere with the Dominion. Sir, his second-in-command said desperately, that's 800 ships against our 200. Many of our vessels are already damaged from chasing the humans. This is suicide. Then we die with honor, Kethver replied. Open fire, the Zephyrian fleet opened fire on the nearest alien ships. Red laser beams and plasma bolts cut through space, striking the crystal hulls of the Altarian vessels. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The Altarian ships fired back with beams of pure white light that cut through Zephyrian armor like it was paper. The Deep Stream Collective released swarms of energy fish that swam through space and exploded against enemy hulls. The ethereal conductors simply made several Zephyrian ships disappear, folding them out of normal space. The Iron Brotherhood lived up to their name, firing massive metal projectiles that smashed through enemy shields. The hive minds attacked in perfect coordination, their small ships overwhelming larger vessels through sheer numbers. The music makers used sound as a weapon, their harmonic frequencies shaking Zephyrian ships apart. In less than 10 minutes. Half of Admiral Kethver's fleet was destroyed or disabled. The rest were trying to retreat, but they were surrounded on all sides. Sarah watched the battle from her bridge, amazed by the power and coordination of the alien alliance. These species had never worked together before, but they fought like they had been practicing for years. Captain, Kim said, I'm receiving a message from the Zephyrian flagship. They want to surrender. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The mighty Zephyrian fleet that had chased them across 3 star systems was now broken and defeated. Admiral Kethver's ship was surrounded by crystal vessels, its weapons destroyed and its engines dead. Put him through, Sarah said. Kethver's image appeared on the screen. His uniform was torn, and there was blood on his face. The proud admiral, who had boasted about hunting humans, looked broken and defeated. Human commander, he said in a weak voice, we request terms of surrender. Sarah looked at the alien who had tried to kill her and her crew. She could have been angry, could have demanded revenge. Instead, she felt only sadness for all the death and destruction that could have been avoided. "The terms are simple, Admiral," she said. "Your fleet will return to Zephyrian space immediately. You will send a message to your government explaining what happened here and why. And you will promise never to attack human ships again." Kethver nodded slowly. "Agreed. But I must ask, how did you do this? How did you turn the entire galaxy against us?" Sarah thought about the question. "We didn't do anything special, Admiral. We just refused to give up. We showed the galaxy that some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds are impossible." "But why did they come? Why did species that barely know you risk war with the Dominion?" "Because they recognized something in us," Sarah explained. "They saw courage, determination, and the refusal to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. Every species in the galaxy has faced bullies like you at some point. When they saw us standing up to you, they remembered what it was like to be the little guy. They remembered that sometimes the little guy is right." The communication ended, and Sarah watched as the surviving Zephyrian ships limped away into hyperspace. The great hunt was over, and the hunters had become the hunted. Admiral Veltara's voice came through the communicator again. "Commander, Chun, the Combined Free Species Alliance would like to escort your ship to safety. We also wish to establish formal diplomatic relations with your species." Sarah smiled. "We would be honored, Admiral." As the massive alien fleet formed up around the small human ship, Sarah realized that something incredible had happened. Humanity had started the day as an unknown species on the edge of the galaxy. They were ending it as the catalyst for the largest interspecies alliance in galactic history. "Captain," Martinez said from the engine room, "the Altarians have sent over repair teams. With their help, we should have the ship fixed in a few hours." "Dr. Kim," Sarah called, "start preparing a report for Earth Command." "They're going to want to know about our new friends." Kim grinned. "It's going to be a long report, Captain." Sarah looked out at the hundreds of alien ships surrounding them. Each one represented a different species, a different culture, a different way of thinking. But they were all united by one thing. They had seen 12 humans refuse to surrender, and it had inspired them to action. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity. The Wanderer's dream, escorted by the largest fleet in galactic history, began its journey home. They had gone into space as explorers and were returning as ambassadors. The age of human isolation was over. The age of cooperation had begun. The Battle of Dead Star 7, as it would later be called, was over in less than 30 minutes. What had started as Admiral Kethver's confident hunt of a single human ship had become the shortest and most decisive defeat in Zephyrian military. History. Sarah stood on the bridge of the Wanderer's dream, watching as the last of the enemy ships disappeared into hyperspace. Around her small vessel, hundreds of alien ships from dozens of different species maintained protective formation. The sight was both beautiful and overwhelming. "Captain," Johnson reported from his station, "the alien fleets are requesting permission to board our ship. They want to meet us in person." Sarah looked at her crew. They were exhausted, dirty, and still in shock from everything that had happened. But they were alive, and they had just become the most important humans in the galaxy. "Tell them yes," Sarah said, "but small groups only. Our ship can't handle too many visitors at once." The first to come aboard was Admiral Veltara of the Altarian Republic. She materialized on the bridge in a shower of crystal light, her form tall and elegant. Her skin looked like it was made of living diamond, and her eyes were the color of starlight. "Commander Chun," Veltara said, her voice like music, "it is an honor to meet you and your crew in person." Sarah stepped forward and offered her hand, in the human gesture of greeting. Veltara looked at it curiously, then reached out and took it. Her touch was warm despite her crystal appearance. "The honor is ours, Admiral," Sarah replied. "We owe you our lives." "No," Veltara said firmly. "You owe us nothing. It is we who owe you a debt. You reminded us what it means to stand up for what is right, regardless of the cost. More alien representatives came aboard. Commander Depsinger of the Deepstream Collective arrived in a suit filled with glowing water, his form flowing like liquid mercury. The ethereal conductor who came next existed as pure energy, communicating through patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. Each visitor said the same thing, that humanity's courage had inspired them to action. They had seen 12 people refuse to surrender to impossible odds, and it had awakened something in them that they thought was lost. But why? Sarah asked during one of these meetings. Why did our actions matter so much to you? It was Captain Vergehen of the Iron Brotherhood who gave the best answer. He was a massive being covered in metal plates, built for war but speaking with surprising gentleness. Because human Sarah, he said in his deep voice, every species in this galaxy has been where you were. Every one of us has faced bullies who were bigger and stronger. Most of us learned to bow our heads and survive, but you showed us what we could have been, what we should have been. Dr. Kim was recording everything, trying to document this historic moment. So you came to help us because we reminded you of yourselves? Not just reminded, corrected Harmony Song of the Music Makers, her voice creating beautiful notes in the air. You showed us our potential. You proved that size and numbers don't determine who wins. Courage does, honor does. The willingness to stand up for what is right does. The meetings continued for hours as representatives from different species came to pay their respects. Some brought gifts, advanced technology, star charts, works of art from their worlds. Others simply came to shake hands with the humans who had changed the galaxy. Meanwhile, across space, news of the battle was spreading. The story grew with each telling, how 12 human explorers had faced an entire alien armada and refused to surrender. How their courage had inspired the largest military alliance in galactic history. How the mighty Zephyrian Dominion had been humbled in less than an hour on the Zephyrian homeworld. The government was in chaos. Supreme Commander Vexstar was furious when he received Admiral Kethver's report. The Admiral had managed to turn what should have been a simple show of force into a galactic disaster. You fool! Vexstar roared at the hologram of his defeated Admiral. Do you realize what you've done? 60 species have formed an alliance against us. Half the galaxy is now our enemy. Kethver, his pride broken along with his fleet, could only bow his head. Supreme Commander, I was following standard protocol. The humans violated our space, and the humans made a mistake. Vexstar interrupted. They activated an old beacon by accident while exploring ruins. This was not an invasion or an attack. It was a simple misunderstanding that you turned into a war. The political fallout was immediate. Species that had been neutral or even friendly to the Zephyrians now turned against them. Trade agreements were canceled. Diplomatic missions were recalled. The Dominion found itself isolated and facing economic collapse. Within days, Vexstar's government fell. The new leaders, desperate to avoid further conflict, sent a formal apology to Earth and to every species that had come to humanity's aid. They promised that the Zephyrian military would be reformed and that such incidents would never happen again, but the damage was done. The Zephyrian Dominion, once one of the most feared powers in the galaxy, had lost its reputation for invincibility. Other species that had been conquered or threatened by them began to rebel, inspired by the human example of standing up to overwhelming odds. On the Wanderer's Dream, Sarah was dealing with her own challenges. Her small exploration ship had become the center of galactic attention. She was receiving messages from Earth Command, from alien governments, and from news services across known space. Captain, Martinez said, coming up from the engine room where he had been working with Altarian. Engineers. The ship is fully repaired now, better than new, actually. The aliens have upgraded our systems with technology we didn't even know was possible. Sarah nodded. The generous help from their new allies was overwhelming. The Wanderer's Dream now had engines that could travel faster than any human ship, shields that could stop weapons humanity had never heard of, and sensors that could detect things across multiple dimensions. Dr. Kim, Sarah called. What's the status on the diplomatic communications? Kim looked up from her station, which was now surrounded by translation equipment provided by various alien species. Earth Command is excited, Captain. They're sending the fastest ship they have to meet us, but it will still take weeks to get here. They want us to return to Earth immediately with our new friends. And the aliens? They want to establish embassies on Earth and invite human ambassadors to their worlds. Admiral Veltara says the Altarian Republic is prepared to share technology that will advance human civilization by centuries. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She was an explorer, not a diplomat, but fate had made her the bridge between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Captain, Johnson said suddenly, I'm receiving a priority message from Earth. It's from the President herself. The image of President Martinez appeared on the main screen. She was an older woman with kind eyes and gray hair, but her expression was serious. Commander Chun, the President said, I've been briefed on your situation. First, let me say that I'm proud of you and your crew. You've brought honor to humanity and to Earth. Thank you, Madam President, Sarah replied. I'm sending Admiral Harrison with a full diplomatic team to meet you, the President continued. But until they arrive, you are our official representative to these alien species. I'm giving you the authority to negotiate on behalf of Earth and all human colonies. Sarah felt overwhelmed. Madam President, I'm not trained for diplomatic work. I'm just an explorer, the President smiled. Commander, you've already accomplished the most important diplomatic mission in human history. You've shown the galaxy who we are and what we stand for. I can't think of anyone better qualified to represent us. The communication ended, and Sarah looked at her crew. They were all watching her with trust and confidence. These people had followed her through an impossible battle. Now they would follow her into an uncertain but hopeful future. All right. Everyone, Sarah said, looks like we're diplomats now. Let's try not to start any wars, Park laughed. Too late for that, Captain. We already ended one. Over the following days, the Wanderer's Dream became the site of the first interspecies diplomatic conference. Representatives from dozens of civilizations came aboard to meet with the humans and with each other. Many of these species had never spoken before, but their shared experience of coming to humanity's aid had created bonds between them. The conference resulted in the formal creation of the Galactic Cooperation Alliance, with humanity as one of the founding members. The alliance was dedicated to protecting smaller species from bullies, promoting peaceful exploration, and sharing knowledge and technology. It's incredible, Dr. Kim said, as she watched alien diplomats working together in the ship's converted cargo bay. Species that have been enemies for centuries are now planning joint research projects. Admiral Veltara approached Sarah during one of the breaks in negotiations. Commander Chun, there is something I must tell you. When we first heard your message, when you said you would never surrender, many of my people thought you were simply being brave before dying. And now? Sarah asked. Now we understand that you meant something deeper. You were not just refusing to surrender to death. You were refusing to surrender your principles, your dignity, your right to exist as free beings. That is a lesson my people had forgotten, you reminded us. The negotiations continued for weeks as more and more species joined the alliance. The Wanderer's Dream, once a simple exploration vessel, had become the unofficial capital of a new galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest. Finally, the day came when it was time to return to Earth. The Wanderer's Dream would be escorted by representatives from every alliance species. It would be the largest diplomatic mission in human history. As the ships prepared to depart, Sarah stood on her bridge one last time and looked at the place where they had made their stand. The void sector no longer seemed empty and lifeless. It had become the birthplace of a new age of galactic cooperation. Ready for departure, Captain, Park reported. Take us home, Sarah said. The massive fleet moved through hyperspace toward Earth, the Wanderer's Dream, the small ship that had faced impossible odds and refused to surrender, led the way. Behind it came the representatives of 100 worlds, all united by the example of 12 humans who had shown them what courage really meant. When they arrived at Earth, the sight that greeted them was beyond imagination. The planet's orbital stations were decorated with lights and banners. Every human ship in the system had come out to welcome them home. News broadcasts were being transmitted across all human colonies, telling the story of how Exploration Crew 7 had changed the galaxy forever. Sarah looked at her crew as they approached Earth's docking station. They had started their mission as explorers seeking knowledge about ancient civilizations. They were ending it as the founders of a new civilization that would span the stars. "Well done, everyone," she said simply. "Well done." The Wanderer's Dream docked at Earth Station 1, followed by the most diverse collection of alien vessels ever assembled. As Sarah stepped onto the station, she was greeted by thousands of cheering humans and alien visitors. But the greatest reward was not the cheers or the ceremonies that followed. It was the knowledge that they had stood up for what was right when it mattered most. They had shown the galaxy that courage was not about being the biggest or the strongest. It was about refusing to surrender your principles, no matter the odds. The age of human isolation was over. The age of the Galactic Cooperation Alliance had begun. And it all started with 12 people on a small ship who simply refused to give up. In the years that followed, the Battle of Dead Star 7 would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy changed forever. Not because of the military victory, but because of what it represented, the idea that every being, no matter how small, had the right to exist with dignity and freedom. The Wanderer's Dream was eventually retired from active service and placed in the Smithsonian Museum on Earth, where millions of visitors from across the galaxy came to see the ship that had started it all. But Sarah Chun and her crew continued to serve, now as the ambassadors and explorers of a galaxy united in hope. They had gone into space as humans. They had returned as citizens of the galaxy. And the galaxy was better for having them.